This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 259. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. No! Could I possibly have more to say? But I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop came out with some models almost specifically made for me. There's a new 40K balanced data slate out now, and I got some really good painting done. Kind of a lot of stuff. It'd be nice to categorize it all in your own custom website from today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace allows anyone to design the website of their dreams with the most powerful and easiest design tools in the industry, like Design Blueprint. Using AI technology empowers anyone to build a more personalized website tailored to their needs, crafting a bespoke digital identity. Choose from a professionally curated selection of styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Squarespace makes sure it's easy to launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated optimized SEO tools, so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. With Squarespace, it's never been easier to set up a unique online storefront. Whether your services are physical, digital, or service-based, selling your wares has never been easier. Squarespace offers an unmatched ability to showcase your unique wares with images, videos, reviews, and add-ons, all capped off with their seamless checkout tools, letting your customers use whatever system they prefer, whether Klarna, ACH Direct Deposit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, or ClearPay. Squarespace offers a free trial for you to dip your feet into and test the waters, and ready to dive in headfirst, and go to squarespace.com/EonsOfBattle to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. New minis for technically Age of Sigmar, but are they really? The new Daughters of Khaine Blood Hags. These are coming out with the new Daughters of Khaine Codex, which they call Battle Tomes over in Age of Sigmar land. And these models, number one, they look very, very nice. It's an interesting take on like elite Daughters of Khaine. I used the Witch Elves miniatures for my Dark Eldar witches, and it was quite the kit bash and conversion, and it took me like 2 days to actually kit bash a 10-man squad of witches, but it was really worth it because they look really, really good. And these miniatures have really got me kind of pumped. The poses are excellent, the armor looks very Dark Eldar, and two-handed weapons. The two-handed weapons have got me particularly excited because I think that these would actually make some incredible incubi. The incubi with their claves. I have 5 incubi right now in my army, and they're pretty good. Like most of Dark Eldar, they're really cheap, and they're really good in close combat, like killing infantry. But the models are just kind of okay. For some weird reason, all 5 of the incubi are in the exact same standing pose, which is kind of bizarre, but these models are in incredibly dynamic, interesting poses. And with those two-handed weapons, I bet I could take incubi kits and cut them up and put them onto these models, because all I need to do is swap the weapons, maybe. It definitely depends on how hard it ends up being, but I bet I could get the clave style weapon onto these ladies. And then I gotta put the masks on, because the lore of the incubi is that they don't ever take their masks off. And so that also should be pretty easy though, because I'm pretty sure the incubi head is 2 different bits that you glue together and then attach to the body. So I bet I can somehow make it so that you don't have to glue on both bits. I think it's doable. I think it's really, really doable, and it would look really good. Another thing that I like about these ladies is their hair is a lot more subtle than on the witches. I couldn't end up using any of the Daughters of Khaine heads on my witches because their gigantic hair, they would have been Daughters of Khaine witches. And so I couldn't end up using those. But for these ladies, I think the hair is subtle enough that I could keep it on the models and just stick the like face plate of the helmet onto the face of it, and then they'd be ready to go. And then they've got the banner on there. I could throw some Dark Eldar symbols and glyphs on there. I think that these models would be perfect. 10 come in the box, so then I could have 2 squads of incubi, which is probably more than I would ever need, because then I would have 3 in my army. But I think it would look so good. I think it would work so well. How good who's that new poisoner model? Lady Malice. How good would Lady Malice look leading a squad of these incubi? I think I really, really want to try to do this and make it happen. Hopefully they're the right size. They probably are. Dark Eldar are really tiny miniatures, and so are the Daughters of Khaine models. So presumably it would all fit like a glove. I really, really want to give that a shot. But speaking of giving that a shot, this weekend I got into the painting zone and I painted up a member of my Black Templars, the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. I kit bashed and converted this guy together out of a regular, I think, Reaver body, and then glued on some parts from the Intercessor kit, glued on some parts from the Rhino kit. I think the head is from the Sternguard Veterans box, and I really, really like how this turned out. I got into the zone. I ended up going all out on this guy, and I think I'm gonna enter him in Golden Demon. I think he is to a high enough level that I can put him in the case, and I don't really think that he would win, but I think that he would make a good showing. Everything is painted to the exact same level. It's very consistent. I think before I put him in the case, I'll probably shoot him with a coat of matte varnish, because matte varnish better shows off the actual paintwork, where I prefer a satin varnish on my gaming minis, because I think that slight shine makes skin and weapons look a little more exciting. But matte coat is the typical thing you do if you really, really want to show off the paint work. And so I might shoot this guy with some matte varnish, but I'm really, really happy with this. I found a new recipe for leather. I think it's Dryad bark and Brigadine beige, I think, from Army Painter. Every time I paint leather, I paint it with different colors because brown is impossible. Like, the Army Painter alone has like 60 different browns, and every brown is like, this is slightly light green brown. This is slightly dark red brown. This is a little bit of a colder brown. This is like every single brown is a weird, subtle mix of different colors. And it's hard to tell exactly what they're gonna do and how they're gonna interact with other colors until you just try it. And so I like how this leather looks, and I've written it down, I remember. And so now I'm gonna use this color for my leather going forward. But browns, there's something about browns that I really, really struggle with. Although I used some greens on the orc skull, and I think it looks really nice. In kit bashing and converting this character, I was basing it on the actual model, which is the Leviathan character that came in the Leviathan box. And so he's got Tyrannid like trophies on his arm. And so my guy has an Orky trophy on his arm, just to really show off that this is the guy, like this is that version of the guy. And I was trying to figure out a way to make him a little bit more into the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. And the ability that he grants in game is at the top of the game, I get to pick an objective on the battlefield, and my entire army gets reroll wound rolls of 1 on that objective. And so I was thinking like, well, what could show that off? And so I glued on this little antenna, which I believe is from the Impulsor kit. I think that's where this bit is from. I just found it in a pile, but I glued it onto his back. And then these little antenna are from the Incursor Infiltrator box. And so putting those two together on the backpack, I think, does a really good job of turning this guy into the sneaky forward operative whose job is to mark a spot on the battlefield and tell all the rest of my warriors about it. Really, really like how this guy turned out. He almost scored me big points in my last game. Actually, my last game, he had to make a 2-inch advance roll, and he failed it with a 1, and then I CP rerolled it into another 1. So he ran from one objective to not quite on the other one. And the last card that I drew was the go stand on your home field objective to score points. And so I had to decide, do I burn this in favor of drawing something that'll get me more points in the final turn 5, or do I keep it for the guaranteed like 2 or 3 points? And my opponent now knows that that's active, and so they have the opportunity to try to kill him and take those small number of points away from me. But I decided not to, and that turned out to be the right decision, and I got just a couple of little points, and it won me the game. Good old Combi Lieutenant. Although speaking of this Combi Lieutenant, there is a new balanced data slate for Warhammer 40,000, and does anybody else get unreasonably excited whenever these come out? I really love them. I haven't gotten a chance to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, but I have skimmed it. Black Templars got a very, very slight buff in that with our Crusader squads, you can take them in a 10-man squad, but it used to cost us 10 extra points. Now it no longer costs us 10 extra points, it's just 150 plus 150, so 300 points for the 20-man squad. Is that good? Not really. I feel like I struggle to sometimes include the 10-man brick for 150 points, but at least nothing else went up. Although this guy, the lieutenant with combi weapon, he went up 15 points. So my current army list is up 15 points, but I think that's okay. I think if I drop an enhancement, I can easily just keep everything exactly the same. And hopefully everything will go fine on the tabletop. Last balanced data slate, the Black Templars got hit kinda hard, which is a bummer. But if Games Workshop really wanted to be nice, they would maybe drop Crusader Squad just a little bit more, which would probably be unfair because Crusader Squad is really good. But the problem is, they made them too good, but they're still not survivable because our 10-man Space Marine squad is actually 4 scouts. And so half the squad has a 4-up save instead of a 3-up save, so we're less survivable. But because our melee weapons are so bumped up to 11, they have to keep the points really high to make it fair. And so we have really expensive, really fragile fighty guys, and it becomes a little bit of a challenge to get it all humming on the tabletop. But that's just the challenge of bringing Black Templars. And I'm not doing Rep X's, even though they're really, really good. Number 1, I don't own them, and number 2, they're enormous, and so I don't really want to put them together and paint them. But number 3, the Black Templar, we're not about shooting. We're about charging in and stabbing. And so I am going to play my Black Templars that way. You have to go in, you have to stab, you have to kill, maim, burn, which is World Eaters, but it's also pretty spot on for the Black Templar too. We're almost Chaos Space Marines, except we're loyal. In fact, we're more loyal than any of the other Space Marine chapters, even the Ultramarines. The Black Templar would never turn against the Imperium, where the Ultramarines, there was, Segmentum or Secundus, Imperium Secundus, which was the offshoot that Guilliman tried to create because he thought that the Emperor might be dead. He was willing to give up on the idea pretty quick, where the Black Templars, even if the entire galaxy was on fire, which it kind of is, we're still gonna be right there helping the evil Imperium do its evil stuff. The balanced data slate does look like a pretty light touch when it comes to 40k. Not too much has changed, although one thing that is really interesting is Codex Drukhari. A bunch of things went down. Homunculus down 10 points. Racks down 10 points on the 10-man squad. Racks now, I think, are cheaper than they used to be before the Codex, which is kind of wild because they were really cheap before the Codex. And now our racks are better. They've got an extra wound, they've got a little bit of extra strength, they're a little bit extra fighty, and we get more racks now for less points than we used to be able to take. And that, I don't know if it's good. Racks are weird, but now I could potentially see flooding the board with some racks just to see what would happen. Also, what's kind of fun with Homunculus down and racks down is the current Drukhari Combat Patrol is all about the Homunculus, and it is down so many points. I think it's 340 points come in that box, which the Combat Patrols, it's not quite true anymore, but the idea of Combat Patrols is that it was 500 points. It was a quarter of your army. And so that was the starting point. If you wanted to get into a new faction, you could get a quick and easy 500 points ready. The Dark Eldar one is really, really cheap in terms of points. 10 racks and then 2 Talos and a Homunculus. I think you could actually get it sub 300 points if you built the Taloses as Chronoses, because they're only 55 points in game. And so it could be literally nothing in this really expensive box. But that is kind of interesting. And then the Scourges with Shard Carbines. This is one of my favorite things with the new Dark Eldar Codex, is they took a data sheet, the Scourges, and they actually broke it in half. And so there's 1 points cost and there's one list of abilities for the racks that are, or the Scourges that are tooled up to carry the special weapons. And that's really, really nice. But now there's a new data sheet, which is just cheap Scourges with the Shard Carbines. And I really like this breaking it up so that you have a much cheaper points cost and abilities that are more tailored to being a cheaper unit. And then you've got your super tooled up, expensive Darklance Scourges. I really, really like that design style. It's really, really nice. I wish they would do it a lot more often. They've done this I think the first times they did this was with the Tau and their Crisis battle suits, where there's the Sun Fury and the Star Scythe and the other one. But breaking them up like this lets them be a little bit more specialized and actually have the tools to build around. Where sometimes it's a feel bad of if you want to take a unit, but you don't want to take the really good guns that you kind of are paying for because you no longer pay per point or pay for war gear option. You just pay for the unit, and because there's one fixed points cost, you're kind of obligated to take the very best equipment. So I think breaking it up is just a really, really nice way to handle that. And it gives Games Workshop more levers to twist and to pull so that they can get the points values to be adjusted and be coherent. It makes a lot of sense that these Scourges with shard carbines are cheaper. 75 points now. That is pretty darn cheap. How many shots do they shoot? Is it 3 a piece? And then all of them can take shard carbines, and then you can take one shuriken cannon or shuriken catapult. No, shuriken catapult is the regular one. It's the shuriken cannon. So you can get quite a few shots. There is something really, really spicy about that. The Leman Russes are the same way. Every different cannon that you can put on the tank turns it into a different tank. So I really, really like that, and I wish they would do it more often. Also, another weird little thing with list building, racks can be taken in 8-man squads, which was really confusing, but I think the reason they can be taken in an 8-man squad is because when you buy a box of racks, you get the parts to turn 2 of them into crew members for Raiders and Venoms. So if you do that, you would be 2 models down. And so if you're 2 models down, there's still a points cost for you to take the remaining miniatures in game as is, which is kind of cool and kind of nice. I think 100 points for 8 is actually really solid. There's happened again when the Black Templars Codex came out, and the Sword Brethren squad can be taken in 4, 5, or 10. And the 4-man squad, I think, is literally because technically a Sword Brethren with the right war gear is a Castellan. And so if you did build one as a Castellan, then you'd only have 4 models remaining. And so now there is a points cost to bringing those 4 miniatures. That one is a weird one to me because no one, I don't think, was doing that, or at least doing that in any sort of like official capacity. I've used the Sword Brethren box to kit bash tons and tons of stuff, but I never really thought like, technically, yes, the right components come in the box to build a Space Marine with the right equipment to be a Castellan. But I didn't think that that was like literally a selling point of the box, because on the back of the Racks box, it does show you, hey, look, it comes with like the turret arms to build these guys as crew members for the Raiders and Ravagers, but that doesn't exist for the Sword Brethren box. So kind of interesting, but I am here for it. I like weird numbers of models. I almost wish this would totally upend all of Warhammer 40,000, but I think the number of miniatures that come in a squad would be a really nice number to balance things around, because kind of everything is designed for 5s and 10s, but not everything fits nicely into 5s and 10s. Like 5 Eldar should absolutely destroy guardsmen, but should do very little against Space Marines. But maybe it should be like a typical squad of Imperial Guardsmen is like 14 models. Typical squad of Eldar is 8. A typical squad of Space Marines is 5, and a typical squad of Custodes is 2. And I think that would be another really interesting way to balance the game. But instead, we've kind of got everything just being 5s and 10s. And how good or bad can you make 5 or 10 bodies? I think Games Workshop is definitely like at the very limit of what can be done mathematically in a D6 system with squads of 5 and 10. And there's definitely squads of 3 running around, but then sometimes they're reinforced to 6. And so, I don't know, it's a little tricky, but it'd be interesting to see Games Workshop move from a D6 system. I actually think it would solve every problem and destroy the game. If you were rolling like 50 D10s or something, it'd be really fun to see what happens. And then all of a sudden, like you could have Guardsmen be like strength 3 and Space Marines being strength 7. And you'd have all of those extra numbers to play with. You could actually have some serious difference between like hitting on 3s versus hitting on 4s. If you want to shoot a gun, it needs to be hitting on 3s. But now Like 85% of the game is hitting on 3s. Well, what if there was 3, 4, 5, 6? Like, what if there was a whole bunch of new numbers that you could just slot in there? I would really love to see an alternate universe where that happens, but it probably shouldn't happen because it would be so incredibly obnoxious to just have those more numbers and just to be rolling that many more numerical dice. I don't know, it's a really fun thought experiment, but probably a bad move for the actual game. If Games Workshop was asking me what they should do for 11th edition, they shouldn't, because I don't know what I'm talking about. But if they did, I really like the rules that modify your dice results as opposed to just the straight rerolls, because the rerolls are really, really good. But if rerolls were much rarer and modifications were much more common, like -1 to oncoming damage is an incredible help to your saving characteristics, but it doesn't help with everything. Like a Redemptor Dreadnought has a -1 to incoming damage, and so if I'm attacking with a bunch of damage 2 weapons, having every single one of those attacks cut in half is brutal. But my last cannon taking a shot at that Redemptor Dreadnought, going from doing 5 damage to 4 damage, not as big a deal. I feel like that edit does a really good job of like actually like representing what is actually going on. Like the Redemptor Dreadnought is so big and so strong and so dangerous that yes, slapping it with swords is not as effective, but its armor barely helps against things like a las cannon from the other side of the board shooting it. I think it does a really, really good job. And so I think editing your dice results like that is actually a much better design space than just flat rerolling it. Because once you go down the reroll path, then you kind of need rerolls on everything. Although don't take away all the rerolls, because my Black Templars get a bunch of them and it's really nice. Although lethal hits and sustained hits on most of our combat weapons is really, really good. The Sword Brethren squad, it's a little overpriced, I would say, but getting 3 attacks, lethal hits on all the Sword Bros, and then the Castellan and Marshal will kill anything. It's so incredibly powerful, but really expensive and really, really fragile. They've done really, really good work for me, and honestly, that squad has done way more for me than Helbrecht and Emperor's Champion. Helbrecht and Emperor's Champion keep whiffing in my games, and it doesn't make any sense. Sometimes I can even get Helbrecht to be rerolling the hit roll with a squad of Assault Intercessors, but he's still hitting on 2s and wounding on 2s sometimes. I'll still whiff 4 out of 6 attacks. It seems wild. Oh, Helbrecht. The last game I played, he actually did nothing, and he swung twice. I don't know. The dice are not helping me out. My dice may not be helping me out, but you know what is helping me out? All of the awesome hobby products available from EonsBattle.com. And we even got some miniatures and board games. We got possibly the best board game ever made, Heat, Pedal to the Metal, and we got minis for Conflict 47. On EonsBattle.com, we have all kinds of hobby goodies, Great Tide Studio Bits to spice up your Space Marines, Army Painter paints, brushes, base and cork, and we have glue. Ultra thin and ultra thick super glue. And we have terrain. It's the best way to support us doing what we do by getting a membership. Each month, members get a credit good for any one terrain pack we've ever made or the brand new one. New in March, we have created the Creeping Forest, a collection of mysterious living creatures that can populate a board perfectly for any fantastical wargame. Weave your models in between the scuttling crab trees, and you'd better watch your step or you'll get bit by the timber mimics. As you wander through a forest of mysterious mushrooms dripping with colorful toxins, you might come across the land kraken, a master of camouflage and a very dangerous encounter. This wondrous terrain collection was invented by us and is available physically and as STL from EonsOfBattle.com. I have been playing a lot with my Black Templars lately. I actually managed to win 2 out of the last 7 games, which is a huge, that's huge for me. I actually am scoring higher than I used to be scoring because now I'm journaling all of my games. And so one of these days, I'm going to be fine at the game 40K, and I'm really looking forward to that. Thanks for watching.